A while ago, I did a poll asking what kind of videos people liked best, and the favored was digital art tutorials. So today I'm going to do a tutorial on digital illustration where I take you through my entire process from the start to the finish. Hello everybody, Miss Art Garden here, and let's get started. So I'll be using Photoshop, but I will try to make it somewhat universal to other online digital art programs. However, I do want to put a disclaimer that I use a tool known as the pen tool in Photoshop here, and I'll be going through how I do that for line art and part of my shading. It's a little bit of a complicated tool to use. I'll go through the basics in this tutorial, and if you want to look at the other parts of the tutorial and skip the pin parts, I'll have chapters down below so you can learn all my tips and tricks. Okay, I changed the ratio of the recording a little bit because I always forget to include this top drop down menu, and now we can see it. So as a little precursor to get started, my image size is probably much larger than you really need. 20 by 11.25 inches at 300. And this 300 resolution is like printing resolution. It's pretty high, but I usually work big and then I can downscale it at the end. You can't really upscale it if you work small. However, you know, this will depend on like the computer you use and stuff. If you're working smaller, when I do things like right now, I have my brush, the hard round brush default one from Photoshop, and I have it at 10 pixels, which looks like this. However, if you're working smaller than me, 10 pixels is going to look much larger. So you might have to adjust a few little things like that. So starting with the sketch. First of all, I have this background layer. I'm just going to double click it and I'm just going to make it another layer. It automatically fills with white. Other programs usually have like a transparent background you can draw on right away if you want or whatnot. I'm going to create a new layer in Photoshop that's down here. A little box, create new layer. But you can also do the shortcut commands. I do have a Mac, so I'll be saying Mac commands. Pretty much anytime I say command, I think you can interchange it with control. I'm going to go Command Shift and the letter N as in north, and this little new layer will pop up. You can name these layers. We can name this one sketch. And then I don't usually like to sketch in black. I don't know why. So I'm going to turn my thing to blue, but I'll try to make it a dark blue so it should show on the screen well. Okay, so we won't draw anything too complicated. We'll draw a girl smiling, something like that. So we'll start with a circle for her cranium, and I'm just going to put in a circle. And as I draw, I often keep one hand on the tablet doing this stuff and one hand on the keyboard, specifically on the Command Z keys, and I just Command Z like crazy. I also have my history open here. If you don't see that, up here in the drop down there should be window and then under H for history. So if you don't have your history open, like if I close it'll disappear, but if you go to window, history, it'll pop back up. Mine remembered it was here. Yours might actually pop up like anywhere on the screen, and then you can move it over here to these areas. So I always have my history. Sometimes I'll have made a couple lines and then I want to go back several times, and you can find it in your history like a log, and your history logs everything you do, so as long as it's not too far back in your actions, you'll be able to find it. Okay, so we'll draw a circle, and let's say we draw that one and we're not really happy about it. We hit Command Z, and then we draw this one and we think, oh, that's really close to what I want, but it's not quite exact. I'm going to do a little bit of a transform warp magic just on this circle. So that is actually Command T. As long as the line art is on its own layer, it should be selected. Also, if you need to find in the drop down menu, it's under Edit, Free Transform right here, Command T there, and that'll show up too. So this free transform, you can make it bigger, smaller if you don't hold anything and you touch these little boxes. If you hold down the command, this little arrow will pop up and you can warp the little box things kind of independent from the other ones. And you can go, you know, real wonky and do perspective stuff with that. I'm going to hit return, and then I'm going to hit Command Z because I don't want that. I'm going to hit Command T again though, just letting you guys know. And then you can do circle, or you can move things around by staying outside. If you're inside, it'll move it. If you're outside, it'll like spin it. And I'm going to hit return, Command Z again, and Command T, just get me back to where I was. But what I actually want to do for this circle, so say I like this, but I don't like how wide it gets here. So I just want to shrink just these in, and you can kind of do it this way, I suppose, but then it's not the exact way I want to do it. So what I'm actually going to do is now right click in here, and you can see there's some menus here, and specifically I want the one that says warp, and you can move these little, I call them stabilizers. We can move those in and stuff, or you can just hold inside the box and it'll just move it like right where you're moving it very specifically. So this is really my bread and butter on getting sketches done. it's a real nice trick. So yeah, I've fixed up that little circle. I'll go through that a couple more times. Hopefully that's not too confusing, but that is very, very handy. I combine this with the lasso tool and I'll go through it as I do it. But that's as far as benefits of sketching on the computer versus real life. This will help you, and you can scale it down. You can make it bigger. You can specifically change little things. I'll go through it. Okay, so let's keep sketching her. Let's make a face where it's not quite centered, and I'm holding that Command Z again. So I'll draw some what I call guidelines. A vertical line is going to help me place where the middle of her face is, and then you can do like a horizontal line. If she's facing up, I often curve my lines up. If she's facing down, I curve them down. That just kind of helps me mentally more than anything. So this one, I don't actually do it like right in the center here. If she's looking way up, I might put it up there. I'm going to have her head position a little bit up, but I'm just going to have it maybe about 2/3 down the circle. This is specifically, for the way I do it, about where her nose will be. So I might actually move this a little bit down, a little bit more. I'm just hitting that Command Z anytime I don't like the way it looks, and you don't have to make your guidelines perfect. These are just to help you picture things. Nothing is perfect at the beginning. It's okay. You don't have to have like a perfect circle. Like, it doesn't matter. Then we'll put in her jawline, face shape as I call it. So if this is about where her eyes are. We might have a little indent here. Her cheek might come out here a little bit. And I'm just going to make these wispy sketches. This is not anything that'll be seen in the final, so you can be as messy or whatever as you want. So, you know, she has her face shape here. We'll bring this one down here. There's a little bit of a jaw connect where the jaw comes in here. That might make her too strong of a jaw, so maybe I'll bring that in a little bit and bring this down. And I'm going to be purposely a little bit messy here. Okay, so I have these lines. I don't want this line. You hit the eraser. It's over here, which is E on the keyboard shortcut command. And I'm just going to erase the parts that I don't like now. And you don't have to erase it to make it look like the final drawing line. You just have to erase it to the point where you do like it. Now you can choose two methods here. Some people like to sit there and they like to reform the sketch manually by drawing it in and erasing it. And that's an excellent method. It might be better than my method, but what I like to do now, say I have this jaw and it's just not quite right. This part is too weighted down, and then this just isn't quite matching up perfectly. So I've picked this lasso tool over here, and it's L on the keyboard shortcut command, and I'm going to select now anywhere that I want to change. So I'm going to go around just that line there of her jaw, and then we're going to hit that Command T for free transform. You can actually right click, I think, and it's right here. And then I'm going to once again right click and then go to warp. And now I'm going to just move this around a bit as I want it, like that. You can, if it's moving too much on one side or the other, you can just select one side of it. This is just the sketch, and I'm actually going to go over this again later. You know, we'll make a little bit of improvement. So that was before, and that's now. A little bit of a change. Now we'll just draw in her facial features a little bit here. Let's give her some tops of her eyes. I'll go through my drawing, but I won't make this like a total drawing tutorial, so I might speed through this a little bit. I do have a lot of drawing tutorials out there if you need any help. And we'll do the bottom of her eyes, that loop down there. This one will come in. I'm giving her a little bit of space on each side of her eyes there. Draw in this little nose bridge I usually like to. Right here, her face is almost centered, but just a little tiny bit over here. So this, I'm erasing this here is where I put my nose usually. And I do like a little swiggle down there, this here, a little bump there. It's usually how I do noses. You can do more detailed ones, like put in nose, nostril lines or something. I'm going to keep this a little bit simple. I'm going to erase this now when I'm hitting E. I'm erasing that. And we can put in the mouth line. I wanted her smiling. I think that's the only thing I had decided. So we'll give her a curved up mouth. We'll give her an open smile. So starting under the very edge of those lines, we'll bring in a little bit of a smile. And maybe it'll be shaped a bit like that. Good enough. I wouldn't get too bogged down on your sketch being perfect from the go. Okay, so now say I have this. I usually go like a little bit. Her lips are stretched, so she's going to have a little bit of thinner lip here, and the top lip will be here, like so. And say now that I've decided this isn't right, because you should have a little bit bigger of a chin, and I think her nose is a little too far down. So I'm going to take this lasso tool again with the L, and I'm going to select it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit that Command T, free transform it, and I'm going gonna keep it in the box, and I'm gonna move it up, and I'm gonna turn it like that, and we can do all these little exacting things. So we'll move her whole thing up a little bit. Whoops, if you click off and maybe actually a little bit more. If you hit return, it releases that, and then if you click off with your lasso tool, it might release that too, and that's okay. You can just reselect it. So maybe I put that too far up. This is just kind of the eyeball game. I'm not gonna get too like worried if this isn't down long enough. I can also just change this line here, because I often draw on the features and then change it a bit. I'm gonna move her mouth a little bit down, make it a little bit wider, I think. And I'm clicking this without holding the command, and then I'm gonna hold the command and stretch it out a little bit on its own too. And now we're just going to fill in some more details of her eyes and give her some lashes. I'm gonna actually erase this line here. Don't think I need it right now. Just a quick little defining lashes here, and give this top thing a thickness, this top lid, lash lid, whatever. And we can actually, because she's smiling, make her even happier by giving these little straight lines. So I'm hitting that erase with E, erasing those, and we'll give her a bit of a look. She's looking over here. And actually, I don't like that. I think I want her to look the other way. So I'm going to go into my history here and go back until I find where I first did that line over here. I'm going to start with this one. I want to match up my eyes, so I got to start with this one, I think. I think it'll look better if she's looking over this way. So she's looking this way, and this one has to match over here a bit. I think this eye is a little too far. You're supposed to have them about an eye length apart. This one looks a little wide set, so I'm gonna take that lasso tool, select it, and move it in just a touch. And I might even shrink it up a bit, like so. So now that we've put in her features, I'm gonna redefine this shape of her face a little bit more. So I'm gonna go in where her eyes now sit, like so, and then we're gonna have her forehead will go up a little bit at this angle, so I might adjust that. Let's go a little bit faster now. I don't think I'm gonna put in her ear with her hair, but I'll just sketch the shape in case I change my mind later. I have a habit of making my head too big, so there's not a ton of room here for her body. I don't know how much of her body I really need though, so maybe I'll just like that, and we'll shape this in like this, and maybe we'll shrink her head in a moment. Yeah, just kind of get a general idea. I think her head could go a little bit back like this, a little bit shrunken, and again I'm hitting Command T to get this transform ability up, and I'm just moving it around right now. She has no eyebrows currently. You can also, the old trick is Command T without the lasso, the whole thing, and then you have options here when you right click, flip horizontal. It's a good idea to check your work when you're drawing to flip it around, especially if you're new. This helps out a lot when you're new and, you know, old, because sometimes you don't really notice when you're doing things wrong. I'll just keep that in there, very basic for her body. I might have her like laughing like this, and since she's pointing this way, maybe we'll have the action go this way, and we'll have her hair, you know, like blown in the wind or something. I'm not sure if I want her head quite at that angle, so I'll just again select what I want with the lasso tool, hit Command T, and then outside of the barrier box, whatever that transform thing is, I can move it around by tilting it around, move it up or down inside the box, and yeah, there we go. Let's get her eyebrows in, because right now she looks a little bit different without them. Not that there's a problem without having eyebrows, but I think she'll want some eyebrows. So we'll give her that one there, and then this one usually stands around where this little middle thing is here. Yeah, just something like that. Have them kind of low, or maybe we could have them high because she's like expressive, like she's smiling. I don't think you put your eyebrows down. That's more of like a grimace. We'll put them up like this, so she's got a little bit more of a true to expression. And I'm gonna actually warp this and move this up at an angle, and then move this down a little bit like that. You don't have to be that extreme. You can just curve it with your brush, but that was before, and that's with it warped. And yeah, maybe bring this out just a little bit more out here. Might maybe have this one go down, actually, even give that expressive look, and then this one can go down. And all of this, like, I'm going a little bit slower than I normally would, so like when you really get in the zone, you can be really fast about this. And I think sometimes when you're making correctional choices fast, it kind of helps you because you're not like overthinking it, especially if you're more used to that kind of stuff. But yeah, so then all we have to do now is draw in some hair for her. Yeah, we'll just have some kind of bangs, maybe go a little bit lower than that, and come over this way with them, something like this, and we'll have them catching a bit in the wind, give the piece give the drawing a little bit more energy. So we can have a couple arches like that, maybe like this. I haven't said yet, but if you're using a newer version of Photoshop, you can keep hitting the Command Z and it'll go up the list. Like I'm not clicking, I'm hitting Command Z and it's going up and up and up. Over here, it didn't used to be able to do that. It's a nice feature. And then if you accidentally hit Command Z, but you actually want that back and you don't want to go over the history just once, you can hit Command Shift Z to get back to the last one. So if I hit Command Z a couple, and then I'm like, no, I do want those, I can hit Command Shift Z and it'll go back down. So that's good to know. I don't actually want that one there, so I'm gonna Command Z to there. I'm being indecisive. I'm always really bad at drawing hair. Let me see here. If you draw something and you don't like it at all, you can always just select it with the lasso tool and hit the delete key. And start over. I think her bangs are okay. I wasn't really crazy about how the hair was going. I think I was just making it a little too windswept. So I keep it a little bit closer to her head. Just put something real quick in. Maybe give her some like braids or something down here. Something fun and quick to draw in. And we can actually have it go up like that. And then back here we'll have them come over here like this. Have this one tuck behind her. And then you might see like a little bit of it. Back here we're making it up as we go. And then maybe this braid could actually come out a little bit. We're just going to erase and draw and erase and draw until we get something that we like, or at least something that we can live with. It's never as perfect as you think it's gonna be. So I'm not gonna worry too much about it being super clean either, because this is once again just the sketch stage. So we can have this come in like that and maybe something like that. Let's erase these guidelines here, and then I'm going to take, I hope this is visible, maybe I didn't make this dark enough. I'm gonna actually take it in a bit. It's sticking out a little wobbly on this, so I'm gonna lasso, hit Command T, and then go to that warp and just kind of shape it in as I want it. I like the idea of the braids. I'm not really crazy about how I rendered them, so I will probably go in when I'm refining my lines later. But we could have a few like strands of hair sticking out too. This probably should be disconnected from the braid. You can have a couple strands of hair there. We'll figure it out. And we can have maybe some hair going back here to cover up. I don't really like the ear sticking out that much. It looks a little silly because it's not like her hair is pulled back tightly. So maybe something like that instead. And let's draw in some clothes for her. We'll just give her something real simple, like just straps, like she's wearing a dress or something. And then we can just barely make it out here. We can have some kind of sketch in that charmise, I think this is what it's called, what I'm thinking of. And these straps here, and there we go. Something easy. We can do another quick flip. Easy enough to do it this way. I think her face is actually oddly a little bit wide. I'm gonna select her head like this, and I'm going to just take that warp tool and I'm just gonna warp her face in. Doesn't it look like it was a little bit too wide? Let me show you the difference. So this was before and this is after. So I think that's a little bit of a change I'm gonna make. Her jaw might be just a tiny bit too down there as well. So I'm gonna take that, Command T, warp, and bring it in just up a little bit. And then one more correction. I think my Photoshop is glitching, so I might have to quit it in a second. I don't know if it's reading on the video, but it's flickering for me. Warp this in this way a little bit. Just get that like precision detailing. Well, that's probably pretty good for a sketch. I usually break this line so the jaw doesn't look too solid. And then you can bring in these little like artery clavicle things there too if we want. But we don't want to go too crazy. We want to keep this pretty simple. So maybe her head is just a touch too big. I'll do this one last little correction and then we'll move on to the next stage, which is inking. So if I just shrink her head in a little bit, this thing was a little bit too big. I'll bring her up like this a bit. I don't know, I have like guide locking, I have like guide locking on, so when you're seeing those purple lines, oh there, I was like, they're not showing up anymore. That has something to do with that. And if that messes you up and you want to just move it a tiny bit, it keeps getting like snapped onto a guide. You can also hit the arrow keys on your keyboard and I'll show you, it just barely moves her up and down, so that's like a precise way of moving her. But I think that's good. Let's go into the next stage, which is inking. So on to inking, and like I mentioned before, I'm going to be using something called the pen tool for this, which is right over here. Pen tool, path tool I sometimes call it by accident. It creates vector paths, and I'm going to go through it, how to use it. Hello friends, a few seconds of video got jumbled. All that was lost was turning down the opacity of a layer. So real quick, this is how you do it. Make sure your sketch layer is selected. Then above your layers, there's a slider bar right here. It says opacity on it and it's got 100% by default. And if you move it down, the percentage changes. And you can see as it goes down, your sketch becomes less and less opaque. So that's all that was missed. Now back to the rest of the tutorial. And I'll show you real quick what our end goal is with these. So you have these paths laid out here, and then when you're done, you stroke them with the brush tool. So you have your brush tool set to whatever. See, these lines are very clean. And I'll go through all that, but I just wanted to introduce why we're going through this. So the pen tool, you click here, right over here for the pen tool, and it'll come up with this. I have mine set to path. I have this combined shapes. I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is. I don't mess with those. And then you can mess with the thickness and the color. I don't know what rubber band does. I've never touched that. So you have your paths here. And so every time you click, you'll create a little point there and it'll be connected by these vector lines. And you can just click all to your heart's content and it'll just keep adding them forever. Or you can come back to the original one and you see that little circle. You can create a closed shape. And then I showed you how to stroke paths, but these closed shapes can be filled. And we'll be doing a little bit of that. And to get rid of this, how I'm getting rid of it every time I make a path, I'm just hitting enter and it gets rid of it. If you don't have your paths, you can put your paths open. This might be helpful if I move them over here. This has the last path I worked on saved. But the minute I click a new one, well, once I've gotten rid of that, the minute I click a new one, it creates a new path. So you have to save them manually after you've done it. This is like the one big major warning with the pen tool. You can lay out all your paths for your line art and then accidentally not save it and then make a new path. And all your work is gone. So be very, very careful to always save it first thing. When we'll do that right now. I'll click here and I'll click here. And if you don't have your paths open, it's under window and then paths. And then, whoops, then yeah, I'm going to get it back by going window paths. I usually keep mine over here, but I'll keep it up here for the tutorial. Okay, so let's do some precision stuff with the paths. I'm going to click once, not touching any keys. I'm going to click it again, not touching any keys. And now I'm going to hold down the command key and it'll go from the fountain pen tip graphic to like the hollow arrow. And I click there and now I've deselected this and then I can make another path separate from it if I want. And this is how you layer these paths. To reselect a path, because like if I try to click here, I'm just going to be clicking more paths. I'm going to hold down command and unselect off of that. I hold down command and I select this and I can delete it, but you have to get all the little dots included, or you can hold down command option and that will select all of them. Even if I just click the little tip of this, it'll select this whole one. Then you can just hit delete. And if you want to go back to a path that you've unselected, you hold down the command key and you click this. And now you see this little plus. I'm going to add one in the middle. It has these little stabilizer lines. I can hold command and move them. I can also delete these all I want by just clicking on them. You'll see the plus and minus. So let's click this. I'm going to hold down command and move this up to match it to that first arc line. And then right away, we're gonna save our path. We'll just call it line. We'll make sure that you do that. That's very important. You guys are gonna come and curse me out the first time you forget. And I forget even in modern day sometimes, but it's been pretty ingrained in me to try not to. Okay, so if you haven't noticed, using the path tool mostly relies on clicking and holding down the command to click off it, click on it. I know that's like a basic beginner thing, but there's some tutorials out there. I have a pen tutorial, it might be outdated. It's a good tool to know. Let's make another path. Let's do from here, this line over here, to this line here where they end. And we're going to go around here and I'm going to take a little bit more advanced approach. So I'm going to click here without holding anything and it'll add that little anchor point. And then I'm going to hold down the command key and I'm going to move it all the way up. Let's move it here. And then I'm going to click here, add a point here and hold down command, move it out. I can move this stabilizer down by holding down the command key, move that down. Add another thing here, another point here, move it up, add one here, and we're going to do something a little advanced here. So I'm going to move this here, and now I don't want these here. I want this to be a singular point. So if I hold down option, this little caret design appears, and then I click on that. It's going to get rid of those stabilizers. And now it's just going to be a singular point without them. You can get them back by holding down option and then dragging on the little anchor point thing, but we don't want that. So I'm going to add a point here. Bring this down, move this out, be a little bit precise here, move this in. I'm going to add an anchor point again, and then I'm going to hold down option and bring it in. And now we have that little wisp of hair. I'm going to add a point here and drag it down a little bit. I can even add one here, make this a little bit thinner. That can just be like a little wisp of hair. And then we're going to add one here, bring it up. Sometimes it depends on how big the anchor points are and they kind of even out by the length between the other boxes that they're at. So I'm going to hold this here, bring it up. I'm going to hold this here and bring this one out and we're going to twist it. If you wanted to just twist one of these lines, you take it out here and you hold down the Option key, and then that'll break it, so you can twist them both. And if you messed up, you can always go back, hold down the Option key there, and now they're back to being connected and moving together as a unit. And we'll add one out here, and we'll add another one here, and then hold down that Option key and bring it out here. Move this in, move this out, and I'm holding down the Command key as I'm moving these around. Some of this might take a little bit of like practice to get used to. Move this one out. Okay, so we got from there to there, doing all that. A little bit of getting used to on how to use this. Anytime you want to check this, maybe I should change my line color. We can change it to like a red, purple, pink, and then that blue will show a little bit better. Anytime you want to check your lines, you can hide your sketch. There's a little eyeball here. You can hide it. There it is, the hairline, and then there it is back. So let's do a couple more of these. I'm gonna go a little bit faster, but still explain what I'm doing. Without touching any keys, I just clicked those three, clicked off it with the Command, and now I'm going to put that in, hold down Command, bring this down, add this without touching any keys, hold down Command, bring this down, click off with Command. And then I'm gonna do that for these hair, these bangs, I guess. Like this, like this, like this, like this. Okay, so let's say I don't like this line being up here and I want to delete a path. Like I want to delete the path, but I don't want to redo it. Like I select this whole thing and then delete it. And again, I selected that by holding down Command Option to get that. I just want this little bit from here to here deleted. So you can click on this, add an anchor point, or move it down to like where you want it, and then click off, holding down the Command, click on just this little end box. And you see that this inbox is kind of filled in and the others are hollow. Now when I hit delete, it'll just delete that line from that inbox to the one that's hollow. You often have to delete paths that go through. And I'll do some more examples of that in a bit. So let's keep going with her hair. Move this down, move this up, and do that. We'll have her braid go down like that. Maybe I'll add a little squiggle in there. Go out. I'm just pretty much clicking to add the beginning of the paths, and then when I'm refining it, I'm holding down the Command key. I'm gonna add this chin here before I add the ear. Add that chin, put in the little bit of ear. Maybe I'll give her an earring or something so it's not such a weird little bit of skin. Anytime there's like these things at the end, you can move them just like you would any of the inside boxes. Let's see, I'm gonna move this braid like this, I think. Make it a little thicker, and then this one can come down like this. How does this look? I actually think I'm going to delete that. This line will be coming in here and then to the break, and then this line will come in here, but we won't have the break, and then we'll just have this little dot back there. Let's see, how's that look? Maybe I'm going to want this to go up. So now I have this line and I want it to be shrunken up. You can manipulate these just like you do like brush stroke. So I'm going to hold down Command Option, click this so the whole thing is selected. Now I'm going to hit that Command T. And you can get this box where I can now like hold down Command and shrink this up a bit. Now that that's like that, I can have this one come in. So let's add in the neckline. And I'm gonna put a break there. Add in the shoulder line up here. Bring this down a tiny bit here, and I'm making sure, I mean, sometimes I have experiences with this because it's so close to here. I knew that if I added this, there'd be a little one here and a little bit longer one connecting to here, so that when I do this, it goes a little swoop up, and you can have her arm curve in like that. You can have her curve in like that if you want to give her shoulder a little bit more of a bony structure, or you can have it go out a little bit if you want. Outside of the barrier of the canvas, I'm going to put that one down there. It doesn't matter. And I'm going to go up and like that. And you can do the little thing where you add like a little line back here. I'm going to keep this real skin tight and simple. So I'm going to have it go a little bit up on outside of the lines, but not like, actually going to bring that up a little bit. Outside of the lines, but not with the little tiny dot fine detail. I guess we should just do her face. I'm getting kind of distracted going down one side. It doesn't really matter how you do it, but again, we're just clicking without touching anything. And now I'm going to click in the middle to add a point and hit Command, bring it out, bring this in, maybe bring that a little bit like that, bring the cheek out a touch, give her a little bit of chin detail. I might bring her chin up a little bit here. I do not have to follow my sketch perfectly. And yeah, so we've done several examples of those. Let's now go in and do the eyes, and then I'm gonna go over how you can deviate from your sketch while I work on this stuff over here. So let's zoom in a bit. We're going to go through and do the eyes. We're going to not touch any keys, and we're just going to loosely mark where the eyes will be, and then we're going to close it. Remember that circle? If you click the end, close that. add a point here, and then I'm going to hold down the command key. I'm going to bring it up, add a point here, hold down the command key, and bring it up. I might want these a little bit shortened so there's actually a square. So I'm going to shorten these, not a square. So there's actually a bit of a point. I want a little tiny bit of a point there. Bring this down, bring these out maybe like so. Bring this to the corner. I'm going to hold down that option and give this a little bit of a stabilizer lines. I don't know what those are called. I always call them stabilizer lines. They probably have some kind of name that Photoshop, Adobe people have trademarked. Yeah, and so we'll just bring in these eyelashes like so. Bring this one down a little bit like that. All right, you can do your eyelashes however you want, and then you can check with your sketch to make sure that's the right eye shape. That's good enough. I'm not going to be super picky. And we'll do a little one like this. Now, before I do the circle, I'm actually going to select this. And I'm going to warn you, sometimes when you're trying to select this, it'll pick up a bigger path like it did there, and you can go, you know, I'm like encased in this circle. I don't know the science behind this, so sometimes you are gonna have to just select them one at a time. So to select them again, I hit Command Option, and if I hit Command Option and Shift, I can select multiple paths. Then I'm going to copy file, which is, you know, under Edit, Copy, or Command C, and then I'm going to paste. You're gonna be fooled here. I did just paste it, but you don't see anything yet. Paste is under Edit, Paste, Command V. Then I'm going to hit Command T again for that transform, and look, there's actually two of them. And then I'm going to right click and I'm going to flip horizontally, and I'm going to squeeze this one in where her other eye is, and this will give me kind of a symmetry. You don't have to do this. I was just showing you because her face is very forward. You could probably get by with this and then you don't have to draw the other one. That's just a quickie way of doing the eyes. Maybe you don't like doing it that way. I didn't make this eye very perfect to begin with, and now I've duplicated the imperfections, but that's okay. We can come back and edit it later if we want. I'm going to just add these little, I'm going to add those little creases there. Let's do the eyebrows too, where we draw them, just connect it here, and there's, looks like just one line, but there's a connection, and we can bring these out and shape them now as we want. And we can do the same thing over here, except I'm going to just line these right up against the hairline. So when we're coloring it later, it'll be a little bit easier. I'll bring this here, actually, and then bring this down and give that a little bit of a stabilizer. And we'll bring this up. And then I'm going to twist this stabilizer down, I think, like so. Yeah, sure. This eyebrow's a little uneven, so maybe I'll bring it down a little bit like that. All right, good enough. So we have our eyebrows. Now to do the irises, I often use the ellipse tool, which is right here. It's under rectangle now. You hit U, and depending on which one you're on, you can hold down over that and it'll bring up the options depending on which one you're on. But say I want the ellipse tool and it's on the square tool, you can hit Shift and then hit U, and it'll scroll through these options. So now I have the circle. So you put your little thing in like so, and you can move it down by holding the command key, and then you can click off it. I usually hold down command when I click off, and then I switch back to the pen and click. It's a little bit tricky. It does some funny things because when you hit return, it gets rid of all your paths, but you can get them right back there. Now if you want to duplicate this, you hold down command option, and then you'll see like a little plus sign, and then you just click on it and drag, and then you've duplicated it, and then you can get like a perfect copy of your eye, and they will be the same size. And then I'm going to grab this up here. I'm on the path tool again, by the way. You have to go back to the path tool to do these manipulations. So I'm just going to click on this and bring this down. This is going to be colored in solid, so I just really want to hide this behind that solid and make sure it's not going to show up. So there we go. Those are the eyes. Let's quickly put in the other features here. Give this nose a tiny bit of a swivel up. Nostril, top of the nose, bridge of the nose area. Give her mouth, shape it in a little bit like that to give it so it's not so straight. I think that's kind of neat. And then I'm not going to connect it right out to the edges. And I'll bring this down, connect one here, bring this in because I want a little bit of a square look. Bring this down, bring this in. You can move this out to get it even more square. And then just make sure that that's smooth down there. And then under there, my sketch is a little off. I'm going to give that there. You can double check it. Maybe my sketch wasn't too bad. I'll just move that up like that. And again, I'm moving these individual lines around. Like if I want to move them, I hold down that option and command, and then I release option, and I can move these around with the command. Just so that's clear. My voice is getting so gravelly. Okay, we're going to save, and I want to remind you again, check your paths and make sure you've saved your path before you click off of this. Let's actually, before we move on, we'll add a little bit of a line here to show her teeth. It won't be like a perfectly straight line, and one over here. So it's like her teeth are gleaming because that's not connected. You can make these like a little bit crooked, like there's the shape shape of teeth here. It's a little tricky to add these in when they're that little. So when I had that out like that and I just hit delete again. If you're having trouble fixing them in, you just have to get a little closer and then work on like that way. But yeah, we'll do that. Hopefully that looks okay. We'll see. Maybe that's a little bit too much of a gap there. I'll bring this over, or I'll take that back. One of the two. We'll one of the two. Okay, so now let's go in here and I want to change how this braid looks a little bit. So I'm gonna bring this down here, shrink this here, and then I want to make sure that this kind of meets under this one. So I'm gonna go like this, and I might just have this be a big giant one that goes into her like so, and then I want this to come up a bit like that. And then I want this one come down, so we'll swoop it out like that, and bring this up like that, and then this one can come in right above this one, just like the other one. And I'm gonna swish this in, maybe this will come in like a little bit like that, and then I'm going to, yeah, well, we'll do this one out here. I want this to be a little bit bigger. This is getting pulled by the wind, so this will come out like that. This one will come over like this, and we're not gonna worry about our sketch. If you get confused about your sketch, you can hide it too, and then you won't be so confused. And then we're gonna have this one like this, and then we're gonna kind of shrink these down a bit. Maybe not have this one connect to that line, because that'll create like this illusion. Here, I'm gonna delete it. I'm gonna hold down Command Option, drag that over, and then hit delete. If I put one here, it's gonna give this weird like twisting illusion, so I'll put this one up here. Okay, and I think I want this to actually come up a bit like so, and this one maybe like that. Let's bring this in, let's shape that a little bit like that. And this one can actually be shaped a little bit like that, and then this one can come down. We could just kind of keep tweaking it till it looks right. Not that I'm ever the best at braid designs, but I think that'll work like that. It's more like a twist hair, and I'm gonna put this back like this. And maybe this one, and I actually think I'm gonna have my hair maybe down like this big bang area. Come over, I'm gonna delete that so I can reshape this a little bit bigger. Sure. So again, I'm not gonna worry too much about the sketch. I'm gonna put a little circle-y thing here, and this will just be the hair tie. I'm gonna connect it like that, and then I'll have her last hair just kind of come out in a big shape like that. Okay, that'll work for now. Let's finish this off. I'm gonna go here, here, and then I'm gonna hold down the Option key and bring that out a bit. Maybe move that in a bit too. I'll put her shoulder down here, and we don't care if we go out of the boundaries. There are no boundaries when it comes to the pin tool. I'm gonna click that. Sometimes if you click on that, just click off it and click back on the one you want. That was just because my anchor point was so close to that one. And I want a little bit of a dip there, so I'll add a little thing there. And then we'll add the strappies like so. Bring these in, line these up exactly how we want them. Bring this one in here. These might be a little wider than the other ones, so maybe I'll bring that in, bring my little point in there. Whoops, I'm gonna delete that. Bring this down, make a couple little lines here, kind of like mummy bandages look. Why not? And then we'll just put these in like that. If you want this sharper, you can always shrink this. It makes it more of a sharp look like that. Bring this one up here, bring this one down here. All right, and then we'll have her clavicle. It kind of matches up with this. I'll have this one come down like this. And I'm going to add some line breaks because I think they look, it's just a little intense when they're just so solid. Add a little couple line breaks there. Maybe we'll add one right over here, just a small one. Okay, I think I'm just gonna leave this one like it goes behind her back and we won't be able to see it, but that will take care of the paths. Let's flip horizontal, see how we like it. I'm gonna move my paths back over here. Yeah, I think that'll do it for the paths. One last little thing we're gonna do, because we're about to color, and we'll be very, very quick with coloring if we have all our paths kind of connected to each other. It's actually the lines that you want. So you can take a minute and go through and see any like broken lines. Like right here, her ear will be the same as her hair. So I'm going to click that in. This will not, if you click in here, it'll go to the background. So I'll click in there, and this all seems connected. We should probably be good. We can just add like a little dot of ink if we have to. If not, everything is connected in the future. This is essentially like your final line So sometimes it's good to step away and come back and see how you like it. And I've actually had to step away for a while. So now that I'm coming back, I can see one thing I want to change and one thing I want to add. So the change is I want to move these eyes down just a smidgen. You can leave her eyebrows up there. And they just seem to be a little bit far off. So we're just going to click on all of them, holding down the command option. And if you want to move more, you'll hold shift and select multiple ones. And yeah, move those down. And then I'm going to move this, and that'll be just a little change. And then as for the other change, I think because her hair, it's lacking in a little bit of detail, I'm going to add a few little like stray, I don't know, strands of hair. So I'm going to do this. It'll also give me a chance to detail like how to go in and remove like little tiny bitty lines. Yeah, we'll do a couple of these. I have one that's just coming out and coming over like that, and then meets up here like so. We'll have this kind of taper in here and get a little wider up the front here. Whoops, grabbed the wrong anchor point. Okay, and we'll have one more down here, I think, on this side. Maybe we'll have this actually cross over. I don't know if this makes sense artistically, but I just thought, oops, we'd add some kind of detailing in there because it's not the best braid I've ever drawn. That's okay. Let's add a little crack here too. So just do a little wedge here and that'll take care of that one. Maybe a wedge over here. I don't know how crazy I am about this little strand here, but we'll make it work. Maybe make it go out a little bit longer, get a little thinner at the very end. Maybe even like peek up a bit like that. And this is crossing now, so I gotta just make a couple adjustments until it is not crossing. All right, that'll work. And then we'll go over here. We'll add a little bit one here like so. One more here like that. And yeah, we'll be good like that. Let's zoom in here and I'll show you. If you zoom way in, you click here and we make 2 anchor points here, one here. I'm actually just gonna move that one in because it's so close. And then we can delete that and not have that line break there. And then we'll do that same thing down here. Make sure this is the one we are selected to. Put a little plus sign right at the edge there and one right there. And then if they don't match up, you can always just exact them a little bit and delete that there. Now that we're zoomed in, I can maybe refine this a little bit nicer. There we go. And this one too. Okay, we'll call that good. This is essentially like your final lines. And of course you can come back and edit it anytime and you can redo it anytime you want. I don't remember making this layer, but I think this is an empty layer. It is. Okay, so we're gonna make a new layer and I'm going to just hit Command Shift N and we'll call this one line. I'm going to make sure my color palette is on black. In Photoshop, if you hit D, it will default back for black in front, white in the back. So we have our lines. We're going to make sure our brush is all at the right settings. Make sure your brush hardness is at 100%. If it's at 0, my quickie, super duper quick, happy time coloring technique for the base colors won't work. So you have to make sure it's at hardness 100. And as long as you've saved your path, you can always come back and redo your lines if you've messed up. And let's make the size for this. We'll start with 8 and we'll see how that looks. So we're going to go to pen. We're going to make sure we're on our pen and we're going to right click and we're going to go down to what is called stroke path. So stroke path, this menu will come up. You want to make sure your tool, I think it defaults to pencil, but you want to make sure it's on brush. And for the first stroking, we're going to not have simulate pressure on. So we're going to just hit OK, and there we go. Okay, so we have the first line, but we want a little bit of line variation. So if you hit the bracket key, it'll bump up your brush size. So I'm going to go up to 10 this way, and then I'm going to go to the pen tool, right click, go to stroke path. This time I'm going to simulate pressure, okay? And that'll just give a little bit of line variation. In fact, we can go a little bit more to show it off. Let's go with 15 and we'll go back. I'll do it through the paths this time. Click here, get my paths. Stroke path, I could just hit stroke path and then simulate pressures on and we'll hit okay. And this time you can see a more extreme of line variation. However, I wanted to warn you that when you do this, you get these weird little, like when the lines are super short, the line variation looks a little wonky. So yeah, we could still do a little bit more. Let's do, instead of 10, we'll do 11. Also, if you have your paths up and if you hit B or go to your brush tool, you can just hit enter and it will stroke the path for you. So it did that there. I don't know how much that was visible. And then you can hit P again and then hit enter to get rid of the paths and see your line art. But we're going to do one more thing. We're going to go up to her eyes here and we're going to fill them in. So we're going to hold down Command Command Option Shift, click this one, just kind of click in the middle of it, click this one, and then now that they're both highlighted, you always want to also make sure you're on your line layer. We're going to go to right click, and then we're going to select Fill Subpaths, like that. I have my foreground color will be black, and mode normal, opacity 100, and I'm actually going to turn feather radius to 0. Then I'm going to click, and that'll just fill that in just like that. I'm going to hit P, hit enter to get rid of my paths, and there we go. We have our brush, our paths, our line art all done. If you want now to add more lines, like maybe you want to go in by hand and draw in some like intricate details and stuff, you can do that. I would actually suggest making a new line, like line 2, because I'm going to show you in a minute how I quickly fill in the colors. So if you wanted to add like blush lines, you wanted to add like streaks in the hair, any of that stuff. I'm not really much of a detailed line person, so I'm not going to do that, but I just wanted to put that out there. So we're going to move on to the next step, which is how to quickly do base colors. Okay, to fill in these, I mean, it's not like a big secret. We're just gonna do this technique where we use the wand and fill it in, but we want to prevent these fuzzies that sometimes appear because it selects it and then there's usually still a thin layer of pixels. I have a way of putting it behind the line and expand it a little bit so that you won't see those. There's some programs out there that already have like when you use the wand tool, it expands a little bit behind the line, but Photoshop seems to be behind the times unless there's something that's changed that I haven't noticed. So we're gonna use something called actions. If you don't have them, you can go to Window, Actions, and they'll probably pop up like, you know, over here or something like usual. So what actions are is they record something you do in the program and then you can hit play and it'll redo that same thing every time. And I actually have mine a step further where I have a short key command, so I'll just show you. First we want to make a color layer. So I'm going to hit Command Shift in, make a layer, and I'm going to write color. And this layer's name is very important. If you do this technique, you have to name it the same thing every time because it's always going to search for the layer called color, not like the order or anything. It's going to search for this layer called color. So I always make mine with a capital C, color spelled the American way. I'm going to hit OK. You can spell color whatever way you want if you want to add that U. Okay, so anyways, let's go to the magic wand tool now, which is right up here. The keyboard shortcut for this is going to be W. Before we do that, I want to change the background color because it can kind of mess up your colors. If you work on pure white and then you change the background to a dark thing at the very end, your character is going to look really washed out, like someone took a picture of them with a really bright flash, if that makes sense. So we'll just do something kind of middle ground, just so she won't have, let's just do like a beige kind of look, maybe even a little darker. This is still going to be pretty light, but I'm going to commit to this just being the background color. Why not? So now we have our line layer. I'm going to go back to this. Let's select a section that we want to color. So we'll select her hair. I'll select some of these. You can't always select everything. You might have to go in and do some fine detailing with, the filling in with a brush later. But I think we can select the bulk of these. So we have these selected and we want to fill it in, but we want to fill it in on this color layer actually behind the line layer. So you don't have to make a million layers, but you do want to make sure your line is separate from your color in digital art. It gets pretty messy otherwise. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the color behind on the color layer and we're going to make it go out further than where the line is, so it'll sit behind it and you won't see any of those weird uncolored parts right up next to the line. So we're going to go to select and then modify, which is right here. And there's a little sub menu or whatever. And in this one, you want to go to expand. If you remember, our thinnest line on here was 8 pixels. When I did the stroking of the paths, I had at one point my brush was at 8. Yours might be a little bit smaller. I'm going to go 2 for this. So I'm going to hit OK. And you can see now it goes behind the line. In fact, I can just color this in and you no longer have that weird little fuzzy line right up against the other line. So you could go even further in than that if you want, but I'm just going to leave it at 2 because in my actions here, that's where it's at. So that's the goal. And then you pick a color, you give her like, I don't know, purple hair or something, and then you'll fill it and then that will be that. And then you can do these a little bit at a faster pace than you normally would. So let's do another one, but we want to go faster so we don't always be going up to select and then going down, oh, where's that modify, and then going over to the sub menu. We're going to cut some corners or we're gonna make it a little bit quicker with these actions. So I already have one up with a shortcut command, but I'm going to make another one now. So you can start here if you want to be safe and create new set. We'll just call this example. So I'll delete it in a minute. I'll delete this hair. We're gonna go and make sure we're online to start with, because we're gonna select color as one of our actions. So make sure you're online, and before you click this, you want to make your selections ahead of time. So I'm going to go back in and get the hair selected. I missed this one earlier. And there was another little spot. Oh, I missed this little corner here. Okay, so we have all the hair selected this time. Now we're going to record all our actions. So we're going to record that going up to select, modify, expand. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit this button over here, which says create new action. You can name your action whatever you want. Okay, and then you're gonna hit record, and Photoshop is gonna remember all the things you do now while it's recording, and then when you're done, you'll hit this stop key. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is go up to select like we did, go over to modify, and then hit expand. And then we have at 2 pixels. If you have very thick lines and you want to get it even like thicker behind the line or more closed off behind the line, you can go bigger, but I'm going to go 2. I'm going to hit OK, and it's already moved it to the 2. And then I'm going to click this color layer down here. I'm going to click this, and you can see what it's recording. So it's recorded that I expanded, and if you open that expand, you can see it's by 2 pixels, and then we've selected the color layer. So that's all we have to do. I'm going to hit this stop button right here, stop playing recording. There we go. So now before we expand, I'm going to go back to magic wand in this history here. I'm going to go back to line. Now when we're on this action up here, you can hit play, and it's going to go real rapid fire through this, and just go broop, and it's done. So now you've skipped having to go through the menu and select color. And it's just like one little fast thing, and you'll notice it goes right back up for the action to be replayed again, and you can click this little arrow all you want, and that makes it going a lot faster. But if this is an action you use all the time, I would suggest you can double click and edit these actions. So like say you messed up and you're like, actually I wanted the expand by 5 pixels, you can come in here and change it and hit OK, and now when it does the action, it expands by 5, and you can see it's actually gone over the line a little bit too much with 5 there, and you can go back in again and edit it back down to 2, and it just keeps expanding. So we're gonna go back to that magic wand here, but say you use this action all the time, there's one more thing I'm going to talk about, and that is when you first hit record, this menu came up and I just kind of hit OK, but there's actually one option that's really important, and it's adding a function key. So right now you can see I have command function 6 as my thing here. So for this one, if I go to F6 and I do command, it'll automatically hit that shift too, since this one's already done. But you know, you can hit like shift F6 or command F6 or F whatever you want. This is kind of nifty. So now I have it so it's online, and I just hit command shift F6 and watch it over here. Oh, I guess you don't see it. It goes too lightning fast, but it went through them all. This jumped over here. So now we can put the color in. So I hope I didn't babble too much, just wanted to kind of explain it. So yeah, now you can go a little faster. We can just select all this, her skin neck, and I'll do Command Shift F6, and it's done that little process here. So now all I have to do is pick the color. I don't have to go through that menu process. And like I said, there's some programs out there that already do something where you were selected and it goes over. So you might just have to look and see what program you're using. Let's give her like a green shirt here. Sure, why not? This can be something like maybe like a light pinkish purple, almost white. Why not? We can color in her eyebrows. I'm hitting the shift key, by the way, to select multiple things. I always make her eyebrows a little bit darker. It's just my style, and usually when you shade it in, then it looks a little bit better. We'll give her white teeth, and we can just go straight white with that because she's a cartoon. And we'll select in her eyes, and we'll give her I don't know, we'll just keep going with green. This will be good. Okay, so now we have all her base color in. I don't actually like this, so I'm gonna go back in and change it. So we'll do that, and then we'll hit Command Shift 6, function 6, and then we'll pick maybe just like a dark gray, and that's better. Come in here and pick that little ponytail thing and give that a color, match it to that. Why not? One little place I missed earlier with her hair right here. So I'll hit Command Shift 6 and fill that in. And I don't think I ever said, but to fill colors in, you just hit Command Delete and it will fill the background color in. So that's my little quickie technique on how to make the base colors really fast. If I take away the line, you can see there's still some gaps in between where the color and the line was. So if you wanted to make yours fit more tight, you'd have to work on how much you wanted to expand it by, but this will do for me. And now it's time to move on to more advanced shading, and we're going to visit our old friend the pen tool to do so. So with the base colors in, we're ready to do the next step in coloring, which is shading. I like to do the anime cell shading style, the simplistic one. But before we do that, we're going to have to do a little bit of prep work. So first we're going to change this layer from color to something else. We'll call it like base. And now if you try to play your actions, remember we had it, one of the specific actions was select color. You're gonna get some like warnings, like first you can't expand because I didn't select it. It says command select is not currently available. They mean the drop down menu, and then you can't expand and you can't select color. So by naming that base now, if we accidentally mess up and we go over and we play our action over here, it will say the command select is not currently available. We cannot select that base layer. We cannot select the color layer because there is no color layer. That will prevent you from accidentally coloring over your base colors, which we want our base colors and our shading and stuff on another layer, at least in the beginning, because it'll make it easier. So we're going to create a new layer, Command Shift N. We're going to call it color. And now if we go in and we select something and we do our little action, it will go to the color layer again, the new color layer. So that's the first thing. Make sure you have a new layer that says color or whatever you labeled your action layer as. Also, I want to go over an alternative way to select areas. Say we want to select the hair. There's two things you can try. First of all, if you want just one layer visible, you can hold down the Option key and then click on this little eye and it'll hide everything but that layer. And then you could select like a block of color this way. Oh, you have to be on the layer though. You can select a block of color this way, but there's some imperfections to that, like see it didn't grab this or these because they're technically a little bit gapped from where the color didn't touch in those areas. So I'm gonna deselect that. By the way, if I didn't mention, the shortcut command for deselecting a selection is Command D. A little bit late on that, but thought I'd mention it anyway. So I'm gonna hold down Option again, bring back all my other layers. So what I would suggest, instead of doing that, you can go back to doing the line, but you're gonna have to do the same thing where you select all those little bitties individually. Or if you hide your line layer, you can go to color and you can select what is known as a color range. So you go to select color range. And now we can select her hair and it'll get all the individual bibbies. You can do her face too, or her shirt thing. It'll just select those colors. And then you have to make sure your line isn't visible because it'll go right up to where, you colored that in, and then your line will come and sit on top of it. You can see it goes under it a little bit. And if you do it with the line on, select color range here with the line on, it will sit outside of the line, and we're gonna get that problem that we had in the beginning where you have that little pixelated outline around the line. Very exciting stuff. So now it's time to do the block shading. I'm gonna mark in where the shading's gonna go with paths and then shade it, and then eventually we'll go in with a brush, do detailing work there, and then we'll do some highlights and stuff. But first is the taking the pen tool and literally just blocking in where we want the shading. And this takes a little bit of getting used to, like thinking how the shading's gonna be, since you're not like applying it, you're outlining it, so to say. This is just something again that I learned when I didn't have a tablet. You can make clean shading this way. So let's add in the shading. I'm gonna super duper quickly change her hair a little bit lighter so that the shading of it will be a little bit easier. So I'm selecting that color, I'm going to base, and I'm hitting Command U, and I'm just going to lighten up her hair a bit and then fix the saturation when I do that, so it can be just a little bit easier here to work with. So let's lay down this shading. We'll start with the hair, the top hair, and if you remember, every time you put in paths, you have to save them. So I'm just gonna right away save this as hair shade right away. We won't forget. I'll move my paths back out here, and then we're gonna go in. So I'm going to mark that up there. I'm still connected to it. Mark that up there. Let me reconnect to that. So yeah, I have this path now. I'm gonna re-click on it, and then I'm gonna connect to it, and then I'm gonna go up and down, up and down. I'm just gonna kind of loosely lay this out for now. I'm gonna do that braid separate, and I'll come back up. We'll go like that, and then we can meet up there. So we have this, and now we're going to shape it to what we want it to be like. For the purpose of the video, to make sure this is visible, I'll make this 2 pixels now. We don't have to worry about the line anymore, so you'll be able to see what I'm doing a little bit easier. I can actually let's make it red against this purple, so it's a little easier to see. Okay, so we want shading we want like this under shading on her hair. I'm just going to kind of place it into how I think it looks right. If this is the light, we'll have the shading more on like the spikes of the hair on on one side. Am I making sense? So there'll always be one that draws a little bit more. So we'll have it all heavier on this side. So the light's just barely catching here, and then they'll have the thicker shade on that side of the hair clump. I don't think I'm explaining this. I think I'm just repeating it without elaborating, but hopefully it's a little bit more understood. Okay, so then we can have this go down with the braid, and then this, maybe we'll have this have a little bit of a shade there come up, and then we're gonna add some more shading in a second. Just kind of generally put in where we'll have our shading, our first bit of shading, and we can change it if we don't like it. All right, so we're not done. We're gonna go in and we're gonna add lots of little shades and stuff, but I'll show you what this is gonna entail while we're doing this. So let's do a quick little, just this part shaded. Select it, and then we're going to select our colors. So for the shading, we'll do one that's like a medium shade. I'm going to go through this a little bit slower in the future, one that's a little bit darker shade. And then we'll do right click, fill path, and we'll go 50, and that will create a little bit of like an airbrush shape around there. And then we'll do fill path, and we'll go like 35, and that will create a little bit more sharper defined shading, just a tiny bit. We're going to flip it to the darker color, and we'll fill path maybe about 7, and then that will create these kind of shaded areas there like that. So that's just the general idea. You'll have a little bit of a transition in, and we can pick some better colors next time so it works a little bit better. But yeah, that's the reason why we're doing this shading like this. So I'm just gonna go in, like, I think that this little tuft of hair, actually the shading will be a bit more under it. We're not gonna go too crazy on the shading, just some simplistic stuff. So I'm just going over wherever I think the hair would be in shadow. So maybe over here there'd be a little bit gleaming here, and then where this braid tucked into there, and then like the same here, like where the braid is getting tucked in, maybe a little bit of shading. And don't worry if you mess it up or if it doesn't look right, you can always erase it, and we're going to do some brush work later. We can fix it then. But this is just to make a nice amount of clean, cell shaded look. And I'm not bothering to close all these. When you fill path, if you don't have it closed, it'll just do its best to go directly to where the other point is. I'm a little bit lazy there. And again, I'm just doing what I did earlier, where I mostly put them in without touching any keys, and then I go and I hold down the command and I manipulate the lines, the paths, to how I want them to look. And yeah, we can add like a little spike of shadow up here, maybe where her should have a little dimple in her hair. Why not? And if you want, you could add like maybe like a streak of shade here and another streak of shade here to add a little bit more interest in the shading, and maybe one over here. All right, we won't go too crazy. We'll call that good. Now I'll go through this a little bit slower on how this shading works. So we make sure we have selected the color we want. In this case, I'm going to do the technique where I hide the line, do color range, pick up this color, and then hit OK. And I'm actually just gonna, because I have thick lines, I went ahead and did my action one more time too, and then I'm going to turn back the lines. And I'm going to pick 2 colors, like a mid-tone shade and a darker shade for this. So to help me pick the colors, I hit D here so that these are reset. I'll pick up this color, and then I'll hit X so that the foreground color is switched, and I'll pick it up again. And then you can pick your colors, and then you can see them there when they're done compared to how they used to be. So let's do the mid-tone, and this is the current color, so you can see like how much you're going to be changing it. So the mid-tone here, I'm going to give it a little bit of a red glow. That should be good. And then underneath that mid-tone, we'll do the shade. I just like it a little bit more saturated, but it's a personal choice. All right, and then by the way, I hit X to switch to the other one and then redid that. So now these are going to be our shades on top of this color. So we have it selected, and we have our paths out, and we've saved our paths in case we ever need them again. And we're going to right click, and we're going to go to fill path. And then on fill path, you can double check your stuff's in good order. And what I'm going to really be messing around with is this feather radius. I hit tab to quickly go down into there and then put in my first number, which is going to be 50. And 50 is quite a lot. So if you're working smaller, you're going to have to do smaller feathering than this. But for me, 50 will be good. It'll give it a nice bloomed out airbrush look. With the same color, I'm going to go fill path. Let's do 25 this time. And then this will give it a little bit more of a sharper color. I can hide these paths for a minute. So you can see this is like, you know, it doesn't look quite dark enough, contrasted enough. off, but it's starting to take shape. And then I'm going to hit X to flip to this other color here, and I'm going to go fill path, and I'm going to go, what did we do? 7? 7 was good. 7, and then I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to close out of that. And there we go. We have some shading. It's a little bit more darker. We're going to go in eventually with a brush and add more to that, but right now it gives it that kind of like cell shaded look. This is a nice little way of just doing some clean shading. I might actually, I don't know if I like that this shading here. Looks a little dull, so I might actually change it. So I'm going to go back in my history to this stage, and then I think I turned this a little bit blue, but I kind of like a warmer purple, so we're going to move it up and redo it. And it looks about the same, but I like it a little bit better. Okay, so now we just have to do that with her skin and the rest of her. So the skin I think is a little bit easier. We're going to make some shading under here, like so, and then immediately save it. And we're gonna go again. All right, yeah, we'll put it in, edit it like so. I'm not used to having this really thick path layout. Kind of fun. We're just gonna kind of make it look like some of the hair has fallen over this way and match that up. And then we'll add some under this chin area, line it up to those lines like so. You might not want to make your paths thicker. I mean, I know I did that so they'd just be more visible for this part, but you're gonna lose a little precision around the lines, which might screw you up a bit. Like I had this down here, it's a little bit off of the line. That's okay. If it really bugs us, we can go back and fix it later. Let's give it a little bit of shading in here. I'm gonna close that, bring this down, narrow that like that. And then this one, actually I'm not going to bring it all the way up to there. I think that'll look weird. Do it like that. Bring this down. Bring a little bit of shading down that way. I don't know. However your shading style is, you might want to consider putting in some blocks of these to help make it a little bit cleaner. Or not. I'm just showing my process. So like maybe try to think if I want these to connect. Sometimes I just fill path with like whatever color, and then I can see how it's gonna look, and then hit Command Z. I think I'm just gonna do some soft shading with the later on with the brush, and for now I'll just add in this little crisp line like so. And we'll just do a real quickie stuff here. So the strap might shade this a bit, and over here might have some shading, and if her armpit is there or whatever, maybe we'll have that little bit of shading there. You can add some shading this way if you want. I might prefer it with the brush, but we'll add that in for now. And we'll add like a little bit of shading down here. And then all we got to do after that, I know I'm being kind of messy and quick. Hopefully I covered how to use the pen tool enough in the previous section. I just thought I'd be a little bit quicker because I know these tutorials can drag. So we're going to select this, go up a little bit, select this, go up a little bit, get her nose. There's always a little bit of shading on the bottom of the nose unless you have some really strange light source. We'll give her that, and maybe a little under her bottom lip here. I think that'll do. All right, well, that's good enough. We just need a little bit of shading. So now I'm gonna hit Option on the base layer, make that show up. I'm gonna get Select, Color Range, her skin tone, hit OK. I'm gonna hit Option and click on that base again. I'm gonna go through my action. I'm just hitting Command F6. That's that. Okay, so we just need to pick some colors here for her to start with. So especially for skin, you're gonna want more saturated colors. So I'm gonna go with that kind of orange, and then on this bottom one, we'll go a little bit more of a deeper red. If your skin is unsaturated, it looks, I mean, it could be a style, but your character will look a little bit like that. All right, so 50 on the first one, fill path. I think we did 25. Flip it, and well, let's see what this looks like. I'll do 7. It's a little too orange. I want to be a little bit more red. Boop. Let's try this one. Fill path. Yeah, that's a little better. All right, that'll be good enough. We're not obsessing over here. We're just going through the process. Okay, so this is just easy to select with the line, so I'll do that this way for this one, and we'll just be super quick. Add a nice little shade here, and right here where this line is going over here, kind of taper it out there like her head has created that shadow, and we can put inside that one another little shadow that comes down here. You might just be able to do this one with your brush for time's sake, but we'll keep on with the process. So we'll just call like strap shade for that. And we'll just get a couple colors here. I know I pre-selected this before I did them. That's like a habit, but you don't have to do that. So shade number 1, make it a little darker. Shade number 2, and then we'll just go through it. So fill path 50, fill path, nope, not creating the guidelines. Fill path 25 and fill path 7. If you're wondering why I never made an action for this fill path thing, I've tried. It doesn't remember the numbers like that you put in for the fill path. It just does like the last number you did. So that's why. And then we'll do this real quick. And I'll just do it super duper quick so we can keep on going. So I'm gonna add some shading here, match it up to this shade that I did here. I'm just gonna double click that. We won't bother naming it. We're on turbo mode here. So I'll put a little bit down here, and that's all we'll have to do. And we will go whoop whoop. And I'll make it a little bit darker here. And then the next one will be even darker. 50, 25, and 7. Good enough. So we got our cell shading look. If you're doing commercial stuff, you might kind of stop here. We're gonna do her eyes and stuff. This is like a good way if you're doing animating, if you hadn't noticed yet, saving all your paths and stuff, you can now take her and manipulate the paths to do something else, like you make her wink or something. You'd want to have made a color palette, which we didn't do. But you could do animations easier this way, where you manipulate your paths, you can reuse them, you can reuse the shading ones too, and you can move them with the character. I have done all my little animations that way for my channel. Anyway, we're gonna go in now and we're going to blow this up. We're going to take our brush, we're going to turn its hardness probably pretty much to 0. And we're going to carefully go to the base layer here with our opacity at 100. We're going to add the whites of the eyes. You might have some shade over here, like I have a little bit there. Don't worry about that. I want to just get these eye whites in before we continue. So fill those in. However you do eye styles, it's okay if you go over here, you can just pick up that color. With the eyedropper, that's the, when you have your brush on, if you hold down the option key, you'll get the eyedropper, or you can hit the eye key. Okay, I just wanted to get that in so we had like all the true base colors done before we continue. So here's what I'm gonna do next. Usually I work on the base color if I want to be conservative with my layers, but we're gonna make a new layer now. We're gonna rename this one that was color shade 1, I guess. And then we're gonna make a layer on top of that between the lines, so Command Shift in, and we'll call this one multiply shade. And then we're gonna set this to multiply. So if you don't want to make another layer, you can work on your base, and instead of changing this layer property to multiply, you would take your brush up here and you would change this to multiply. Where's it? Where's it at? It's hiding from me. Multiply right here and work on the base, but I'll go through the brush one later, but for now we're going to do the layer one as multiply. So we're going to start with her hair, select color range this one again, and then I just held option and clicked on that as I always do. Now we're on this multiply layer. I've changed my mind. I'm going to change this to color right now just so we can use our command if we want, the command F6. But yeah, it's on multiply. And what does multiply do? It multiplies the colors. So you can see it looks a little bit like that. We're going to just add some, I'm not going to go crazy here. If you wanted to, you could be a little bit more cautious and careful. Turn my opacity down. You can turn it down up here to like, I don't know, 16 is fine. And I usually take the color itself, or you can play around this colors, and we're gonna add in some deeper shading here. The more saturated your color is, that's a bit of a warning. So if I have like a super saturated color and I bring this here, it might eventually start to distort. You're not gonna see it there, I guess, but it might eventually start to distort. So we're gonna multiply here by adding these kind of shading on, and this will give her a little bit more dimension. We can go down here since we're just selected on the hair. We don't have to worry about going over her face. And then like some of these more complex shadows, we can maybe blend them down in. I still have my brush hardness. We'll just turn it all the way to 0 for this, or almost 0 if you want. And I'm gonna kind of go through these areas here, give them a little bit more hints of shadows, and just kind of add more dimension. All right, and I'll show you in a second. Go through here, add more dimension over here. And where else? Let's do a couple little streaky lines here, and up here we can come down and go out like that. And then if you want to get even more, you could take a little bit of a darker color like that, make this nice and big, and then we're just gonna kind of hint that this is a little bit more in the shade shadows over here. All right, so that's just a quickie on the hair. Move this up. We're gonna do the same with the skin. Select color range skin. Thank you. Bring that back up, and I'm gonna hit my action, just put it a little bit more behind the line. And we're gonna actually pick this, I think, for the shade, and we're gonna be Yeah, I'm just gonna be a little bit careful here. Add it in a little bit here, maybe a little bit more down here. We're gonna do a little blush there, so we're not gonna worry too much about that. Let's add it in here in this area where the neck, a little bit funny. And a little over here, maybe down here. Actually, I don't like that. Let's do it like this, and a little bit here, and that kind of helps blend in the colors and gives dimension and stuff. Little quickie thing here, and then so this is it without it, and this is with it. Just gives a little more dimension, gives a little more dynamic shading, and then we can just quickly do this and the other one too. So let's do this first, pick this up, and we'll just kind of add a little bit more on this side, and then a little bit more like that. And then for this one here and here, do the same thing. We'll just kind of add a little bit dimension there. Pick up that shade too. You'll just pick out your colors how you want them. I'm just trying to demonstrate this without, spending too long on it. That's the general idea. Okay, so now we're gonna rename that multiply shade. And we're gonna do another layer now. For highlights, we're gonna call it color again. To make it easier, since we have that in the action, we can change the name later. So let's quickly go through how to highlight. We're gonna pick her hair. I don't know why I'm doing that. Select color range, hair, please. And then we're gonna go back to that. Okay, we got it. We got it. I just clicked it too many times. So now we're gonna take this, we can add a couple highlights. There's two things you can do. The color dodge, you probably see everyone use that. I actually like overlay better because I'm a weirdo. Yeah, we're gonna change that to overlay. You can change it to color dodge if you want. And we're gonna go through now. We still got 16. This is gonna be the highlight hour. So I'm gonna add a few little spots of highlight in her hair especially, because that's always kind of nice. We can add a few like over here, kind of light touch it. And then we're gonna add some in like a little like line area here. And maybe a couple over here, like a little bit, one there, one there. Add some to the braids down here. We can go a little smaller, add a few more, get a higher, lighter color, add some like more sharper ones in there. Yeah, we're just gonna make that like that, that like that. We're gonna do that beam of highlight in a minute, a different way. But I just wanted to show you, you can add a few little highlights here. You might add a little edge light or something there if you want. Just detail it out. Just detail and highlight however you want. But there we go. So we have some highlights now on her hair. You can do the same on her skin. I'll just do it. I'm not gonna select it. I'm just gonna be careful where I lay it. Because this is overlay with white, it's gonna look a little yellow even, but that's okay. You just kind of play around with this stuff. You can do a few here. You can make like a nice yellow color, let's say, to highlight this down here. And we'll do a little highlight here, maybe a little patch here, and then maybe a highlight down here in these wrinkle folds, whatever you want. I just wanted to show that off, and then we can call this highlight. Okay, so I've shown you how to change the properties of the layers and add a few little things. Let's go back to the base color, but I wanted to show you if you want to change your brush properties instead. So we're going to go to the base color and we'll add a blush. So we're going to zoom in here. We're going to go to our brush. It's still at like 16, that's fine. And we're gonna up the size a bit more like that, and then we're gonna go to, instead of normal, we're gonna go to multiply like we did earlier, and we're gonna pick kind of a rosy peach. So that'll be good. We're only on 16, so when we add this, it's gonna multiply the colors. Let's add that little blush there, little blush there. Maybe we'll go crazy and go across the whole nose. Here, a little bit more of blush over here and over here. Now if you look just at the base colors, that blush is there, and we can do a lip color. Let's give her like a little bit more of a cherry red lip color. So I'm gonna add this in. I'm gonna actually select the face this way, just so I won't be getting in the teeth and having to clean that up. There's no color layer right now. That's what it warned me of, but I'm gonna go to the base over here, and we'll just add in a little bit for the lip color. I'm gonna make it a little messy like this, and make that top always a little bit darker. And then I'm gonna take the brush here, normal, and our opacity back to like 100, and take this. And if you're doing this on a separate layer, you would use the eraser instead. And we're just gonna shape in her lips the way we want them, like that. These actually are okay, I think, the way they are. Okay, let's go back up to that highlight layer and make a white, and with our 100% we'll add like a little bit of a shine to her lip. We can do the top one too a bit, and we can do her eyes. There's multiple ways to do her eyes. You can do it on the highlight layer. I'm gonna keep doing it on the base. I'm gonna select this, do my action thing, get yelled at because there's no color. We'll go back to brush, and we'll do everyone's favorite color dodge just for this. So I've got a bright green. We're going to turn our opacity down a bit, and we we can just kind of work on giving this eye a little bit of a shine. So like this, maybe I don't want my brush this big, but now I'm just gonna finish it that way. We'll turn our brush down. We can always hit the bracket keys to select sizes. You can go a little bit more crazy, a little bit more traditional, whatever. Let's just throw these in right here. I'm gonna go up to multiply shade. I'm going to take my brush property, turn it back to normal, turn this opacity to like, I don't know, 40 or whatever. Make my brush bigger, and we're gonna add pupils. So we'll want hardness, I don't know, almost 100. And I'm actually gonna click these in with my mouse because my tablet is pressure sensitive. So we want to line these up so they're not cross-eyed. So we'll do pupil number 1, pupil number 2. You can decide the size of your pupils. We'll go up to highlight now, and we're gonna go back to white, and we're gonna go back to 100%. All these little things, I hope they're not too hard to keep track of. I'm gonna go to hardness 0, and we're gonna add a little bit of a highlight under here like that. And then you really need like one more white shade on the eyes. This one always kind of trips me up. You could make another layer if you want, and then do your little shiny shines in there. Or you could do it on, if you're really taxed, you could do it on like your line art, as long as you don't cross the line art or something. You might be creative with how you do the eyes. But yeah, we'll just do those like that, give her a nice little glow, something like that. Why not? And there's actually something I missed. We're gonna go back to multiply shade. I'm gonna hit D to get black, and I'll turn my hardness all the way down, my opacity down a little bit. Let's add in some shade. Let's turn my opacity down even more. I want to build this up. And we'll add in some shade like under her eyes, and that'll give it more of a dynamic look. So yeah, I'll just go over that with my tablet a bit, or your mouse if you have to. That's all you got. We'll do that. Okay, so that's the base of the shading. Alright, so we're pretty much coming down to the end of it. I've just got a few more little things I can show you that I do as part of my art making. First, I'm gonna add a little bit more blush to her. I think it just came off so pale, I'm a little bit worried it's not showing up in the thing. So hardness 0, blah blah blah. So I'm just gonna touch that in a little tiny bit. Just a little tiny bit. There we go. And now I'm going to show you clipping mask. So say you want to just be able to apply ink to the whole thing without worrying about, selecting the individual colors. And you don't want it to go over into the background. You want it just on the subject. You can do what's called a clipping mask. So like above the base layer, let's add a new layer. And you'll see right here, there's actually a little check mark box that says use previous layer to create clipping mask. If we click that, and we'll just hit OK, it goes over to the right a little bit. And now when I draw on this base color, whatever's underneath it, let me make this a little bit darker. You'll see it won't go off of what's underneath. It'll just apply to what pixel data is on here, the color that you put on here. Let's put it on overlay, let's say, and we'll turn our opacity down, and we'll pick some color, some dark color, and we'll just kind of squeeze it on a few places. It'll go into the green. You can just kind of mix and match whatever you want. You can make doing the hair a little bit easier if you want. You could just put some black into the hair if you want, something like that. Create more of a shade right where her face is, like that. Little things like that. It's really useful. I actually mostly use it for, I'm just taking the eraser tool so I don't have these blunted edges because I made that a little bit big, but it's really useful for digital painting. So that's another thing you can do. Also, another little thing I do is on the base layer, I'm just going to select it, hold down Command, and if you click on the image part, it's just going to select everything that's in that layer. Just real quick, I'm going to make my brush color dodge, the famous color dodge. And here on the base, I'm going to turn it way down, opacity way down to 5%, and I'll make this just a little bit brighter of a color. And then when you go over, you can do that like that halo effect that people do for the hair. You can make your brush smaller as you go and apply things, and then it'll create like this gleaming line. And you could do some of the little strips like they're individual strands if you want. And you want to be careful because if your opacity is too big, it's just going to do like a weird blowout thing. I mean, maybe that's your style, kind of like 80s color. And you could turn it up a little bit at the end if you want to add like some real prominent ones or something. I don't know, up to you. But yeah, we'll give her like a nice real shiny gleam here. You could see it over here. You can blow it up and give it like a nice highlight like right on the edge of her hair, like catching the sun there. And maybe since we're here, we could do a little bit on her face too, make her nose a little blown out, make her lips a little blown here. It's going to change the color a little bit, so you just have to be a little bit careful, but you could add some final highlights this way. Give maybe like the edge lighting thing here at the very back, something like that. And just because it's bugging me, I'm going to go to my shade layer and get that little bit that missed because it wasn't highlighted. Another thing I do, kind of like a trademark thing, thing, and this is going to create a lot of layers here at the end. You can consolidate. But another thing I often do is I color my line art. So I go to line, and we're going to do that clipping mask thing for this line art too. So we're going to we'll just do like line color. And if you have a layer and you want to make it a clipping mask, you can right click on it and then you can go to create clipping mask. And then if you have a layer you don't want to be a clipping mask anymore, you can just do the same thing, release clipping mask. I just want to show you that other way of doing that. So let's pick a nice purple, kind of a light purple pink. And I have my brush. I'm going to turn the hardness to 100 here. And I'm just going to go over my brush with this. And you can go in and be a little bit more detailed. I don't want to zoom in too much on these tutorials. You can go in and be a little more detailed if you want. This will just color your lines and they just look different. They look, you know, just a different kind of style. You don't have to do this. It's just something I do. Some people like it, some people don't like it. For me, it's more like just like a style. Just a trademark. We'll do her hair. We'll do like a red for her skin. I'm gonna erase this. I'm gonna take the eraser tool, erase that, go back to the brush tool, keep doing her skin. I think sometimes it's fun to make like some of them glowy, like the hair, and some of them darker. The skin, I don't think usually looks too good glowy. Let's see, like if it's white, it kind of, you lose your features. So you have to be somewhat careful unless you like that style. I'm gonna pick up that color I was using. Finish this off. Little guy here, little guy here. Touch that up. And then just like a, I don't know, green for the shirt. And just a light gray for this thing. Down here, quickly add it in. Okay, I will show you what it looks like if you release the clipping mask. It's like this big mess. She looks a bit like a clown. But yeah, it goes over the line. So yeah, so it's just another thing I do, a styling thing. I'm just gonna go in here real quick and add a shade to this. No need to select it or anything. I'm just gonna be real careful. Did this get colored? I'll just leave it like that. Just it was a little tiny thing bugging me. You can put it in a background if you want. You can take, sometimes I take like a brush with texture. So I have a bunch of like Photoshop brushes and stuff in here. I have a couple of my own custom made ones too. Let's take this one. This brush, we'll go into brush settings and we'll space it out a bit and we'll scatter it a bit. And you could go in and you could add some kind of thing. I created a layer behind the base, if I didn't say. You could come in and add something just so it's not like she's floating in an atmosphere of nothingness. And I don't know what color you could use. You don't have to go 100%. You could blend this a little bit more gently if you wanted. Maybe there's like some bushes behind her or something. Who knows? Something a little back there. Maybe it's a poison fog, poison gas. I don't know what this is creating. I'll add a little bit more weight behind her head with this. And I can take some of this, bring that up. Who knows? Just a little background. You don't have to add anything fancy, but sometimes it's nice just to have something back there. And then the last little fancy finishing touch, I'm gonna make another layer. I'm gonna call this one overlay light. And I set my layer property to overlay right here, and then I'm gonna pick some colors. Let's make like let's make a yellow, like it's the sun coming. So we'll pick this yellow. I'm gonna go to the gradient tool. The gradient tool is right here. It might be on paint bucket or gradient tool. I don't remember which one's default, but it's there. And then up here are some choices, some options here, and I'm clicking basic. So I want the one that has just one color. So you have your foreground color and then the other part is transparent. So make sure that one's selected. And then I'm gonna take it right here and I'm gonna drag it down so like here, and since it's overlay it won't really cover her. Like if it was normal it might cover her more, but overlay gives it a nice little extra flare. Over down here, I don't know, let's just experiment. Maybe we'll add like a blue from this corner up here, or we can add a red, bring it up here. It's just something like, it adds a little, I don't know, it's just something I like to do. I don't know why. Maybe purple from up this way, except I want to angle it so it doesn't take out the yellow. I don't know. Looks a little silly, a little disco lighty. It's just something I like to do, and I thought I'd share that with you. If you have it and it's totally washing your character out, but you still kind of like it, you can play with opacity. It doesn't, you know, draw away from them too much. And then just one last little thing, if you're color picking, you're going to want to take this layer off because it will make a difference what your colors turned out to be. So there's that without the layer. There's that with the layer on the same spot. You can see it'll make a difference. So that is about it. You can go in, you can detail. We did a pretty light touch on this whole thing color-wise. But there we go. We have a start to finish process on how I do digital art. Hopefully this will help some people. Just showing off my techniques. I always think it's kind of useful to see other people's techniques, and sometimes you want to adapt things and sometimes you don't. So maybe you found something useful about this. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.